So let's start. Now we were talking about ANOVA. In ANOVA, what happens is you'll just go for the ANOVA table where they have given us degree of freedom, sum of squares, mean squares, F value and probabilities. We are only looking for probabilities. This just says that the relationship that we were checking for in this factor state is very significant to us. Class is also very significant and gender is also very significant, whereas age is not very significant. Okay, so just by looking at this you can talk about the significance of each of these variables. Okay, again just look at the p-values. They are always checking whether these coefficient of these values are 0 or not. For that p-value we have very large p-value, that means most likely age is not significant. If we have very small values, then clearly they are significant. You can see the stars here. Okay. Now let's talk about principal component analysis. Now see, principal component analysis consists of some concepts that may or may not have been taught in 11th 12th. We call it as eigenvalue and eigenvectors. Okay, we just need a little bit of brief idea about what that is, so I will be talking about it using this. Okay, so first of all, what is principal component analysis? It is just trying to find a relationship or define different kinds of relationship between different variables. So here see, first step in defining principal component analysis, P, original variable is to find the linear function. This is our linear function. Okay, so we are trying to figure out how this linear function works, whether it is a good linear function or whether it is not a good linear function, by defining these vectors, these coefficients. Okay, so these coefficients are the ones that are going to tell us whether the relationship between y and these values are good or not. Okay, so that is what principal component analysis does. Okay, derivation, we'll not talk about that. Okay, but if you have such a value in form, see what is happening is we are converting this into such a form where we are saying there is a particular value lambda, for that this value will give us 0 or whatever desired value we want. We are looking for 0 in this particular case. In that ways we will be able to solve and calculate all this a1 and a1 dash and a11 and a12, these values. To solve this, we'll create such equations. Okay, and this lambda is called as eigenvalue or eigenvectors. Okay, so we create such equations. Okay, this is one of the example of that equation. This is general value of that equation. Okay, that is called as Lagrange multiplier. This value is called as a Lagrange multiplier. Okay, and for the value for which it will solve our equation is called as our eigenvalues. Okay, so this is our eigenvalue, where I think this is going to be our eigenvector. Anyways, does not matter, it's just a term that we'll not be using a lot. Okay, lambda is an eigenvector where a is an corresponding eigenvector of the covariance. This is called lambda is an eigenvalue where a is nothing but our corresponding eigenvector. Okay, now let's talk about principal component analysis. Principal component analysis is going to tell you whether there is a possible value of this eigenvalue or not. Okay, so here they are saying 20 engineer, whatever, does not matter. So these are the things that you are looking for in principal component analysis. Okay, we are basically looking for form relationships. Okay, whether there is relationship or not. Okay, so principal component analysis will be performed on the data to transform the attributes into new variables that will hopefully be more open to interpretation and allow us to find any irregularities in the data such as outliers. Load the data and name the columns. The factors in the group columns are renamed to their actual grouping names. So it's just data has been uploaded. Okay, this is the data. And the variable appears to be measured in different units, which may lead to the variables with large variances dominating the principal components of the covariance matrix S. We will perform principal component analysis on the correlation matrix. So first we will take correlation matrix. So first they have calculated the covariance matrix. So this is the covariance. Okay, so intelligence versus intelligence. So this is nothing but variance of intelligence. This and this covariance and so on. So they have calculated covariance to figure out whether we have very large covariances or variances or something. Okay, so total variance is defined as sum of all such values, which is equal to the sum of eigenvalue of S. So basically these values, variances, you will just add up all the variances. That gives you this. So it would be sum of 1 1, sum of 1 2, sum of 1 3 and so on. You will add up all those values. Sum diagonal S. Okay, so this way you can calculate covariances that would give you variance of each, and you can add them all up to get the total variance. So this becomes nothing but your total variance. Compute the eigenvalues and corresponding eigenvectors of S. Okay. So for that all you need is your function eigen. Okay. So that ways you're saving it as S dot eigen here, eigen S. That gives you nothing but the eigenvalues. These become your eigenvalues. And if you take this dollar vector, you will get the eigenvectors. Again, these are not going to be very important. I'm just trying to tell you what can be done using PCA we can find these particular values, principal component analysis. In our examination, they do not ask us eigenvalues and eigenvectors, but if they do, you should know how they are calculated. Okay. Now the eigenvectors represent the principal components of S. This is the point here. These eigenvectors are representation of nothing but principal components of S. The eigenvalues of S are used to find the proportion of the total variance explained by the component. Okay. So it's just basically a sort of a ratio of different variances. Okay. So these are the eigenvalues. Okay. The first two principal component account for 75% of the total variances. So this explains that these two values, you can see majority of the data, or about 75% of the data, is represented by these two values. If you combine these three, you will get about 80 to 87% of the data. If you combine these three, then you will get, so this tells you which values are dominating the data. So clearly this first value is dominating 50% of the data, but you would want more than one values to take almost all of the data. Okay, so for that we actually will use directly PCA rather than finding eigenvalues directly. Principal component analysis, principal component analysis with R. So we'll say our function is nothing but PRCOMP. This is nothing but for principal component analysis. So what happens is it gives you nothing but PCA1, PCA2, PCA3 and so on. Okay, this is nothing but the ratio of your variances, how much variances are included in which particular variable. Okay, which variable is contributing to most of the variances. That is what we are checking here for. Okay, so this, although we didn't use the preferred method of applying a singular value decomposition, the component reported by PRComp are the same as what we computed earlier. Save arbitrary scaling of -1 to some of the eigenvectors. Summary method of PCR-COM also outputs the proportion of the variance explained by the component. This is what we want. So after calculating your PCR-COM, what you will do is you will take summary. Okay. Summary of this particular data. Now this tells you that proportion of variance and cumulative proportion. So this tells you that your first component is representing 50% of the data. Second component 75.5% of the data. That means these two together is representing 75.5%. These three together are representing 87.2. These four together are representing 94.7, and these five together are representing 98.5% of the data. So most likely we would say that 94% to 98% is good enough for our representation. So we will choose either 4 components or 5 component analysis. We'll not go for the 6th one because most of the data is represented up to this point. So that is what principal component analysis gives us. Okay, otherwise you do not need these analysis. You can calculate eigenvectors and eigenvalues, but it's not required. Okay, interpreting principal components. Now interpretation of principal component is still a heavy research topic in statistics. Okay, this is the biggest problem whenever we are talking about principal component, because it can talk about a lot of different things. Okay, although the components may be readily interpreted in most settings, this is not always the case. One method of interpretation of principal component is to calculate the correlation between the original data and the component. Okay, so the autoplot function also generates a nice data table with the original variables and the calculated principal components, which we will use here to find the correlations. First, compute the correlations between the data and calculate the component of the covariance matrix. Okay, so they are saying PCA.plot data. They've just used the data that we have here of this PCA and correlation between these values. Okay. This is the correlation. Okay. Now principal components can be interpreted based on which variable they are most correlated in either a positive or negative direction. So here you can see the most correlated variables: PC3 for intelligence, then again seems like PC3 for form relations, but PC1 for dynametrics, PC1 for dotting, here again PC1, and here again PC1. Okay, so you can interpret which particular component analysis is better for which kind of variables. Okay, so the first component is positively correlated with dotting, pervasion, intelligence, and dynametrics. Okay, this correlation suggests that 5 variables vary together, and when one goes down, the others decrease as well. So these are telling us that we have 5 variables that are varying together. The component is most correlated with dotting as 0.87. Okay, and could be considered as primarily a measure of dotting. Okay, so we can assume that principal component 1 is representing dotting very well. Okay, the second component is most correlated with perseveration and intelligence, both in a negative direction. Okay, the dotting is correlated with the second component in the positive direction, which would indicate as the persuasion and intelligence decreases, dotting increases. Okay, so this and these two are in negative direction with PC2, this, and the majority relationship in the opposite direction is for dotting. So we are saying most likely if these two decrease, then dotting will increase. Okay, that is what this is telling us. Others will also increase, but dotting will increase the most. This is a relationship. The third component is primarily correlated with the intelligence and not much else. This component could be viewed as a measure of intelligence of the individual apprentice or pilot. It will decide previous. It was decided previously that due to lack of information regarding the variables and their unit of measurement, it makes more sense to use correlation matrix R for performing principal component analysis. Okay, that is not part of our course anyways, so we'll not go into too much into that. Okay, so this is how, first of all, how much variance is included in which particular component. That is what would be important. That would be this cumulative proportion, and majority of the data, you would say majority of the data is included up to this PC5 in this particular case 92.4, or maybe you would say up to, we will take up to all of the data, that would be PC6. We do not want any more of the component analysis. So basically cumulative proportion of variance, that is what we can talk about. Or you can talk about how first analysis is relating to which variable, second analysis relating to which variable, third analysis relating to which variable, and so on. Okay, so if you directly use PC comp, you are going to get nothing but component analysis. These are all vectors, actually eigenvalues. And if you use summary, you will get proportion of variance. Okay, these are the two things that is important. Let's move on. Let's talk about GLM, generalized linear model. The GLM works very similar to our linear model like we did here, okay, in which we will have some formula, will come out from some data. Okay, here also we will have a particular formula, it will come from a particular data. Okay, in the previous one I have only talked about, you know, how to write in terms of data, but I will tell you there is an easier way to write. Let's say this is the model that we were talking about, right? Okay, this was the model. We said it comes from the data autoclaims. Now let's take into account another way of writing this model. Let's say M is equals to, I will have LM, and I will say my first response is coming from autoclaim. So I will say, as soon as I am starting to write autoclaims, see, you can see here I have autoclaims. I'll press tab and press $, and now I have option for all of these. That way I do not make a mistake of spellings. Okay, so I'll say paid follows, I will say again autoclaims $, will have age, then plus all the other. This is another way of writing. If you're writing in this term, writing, you know, the autoclaims $, and then writing, let's say state plus we had class claims dollar class and then plus auto claims dollar, we'll have gender. Then you do not have to specify data, rather you should not write then data, because it has already said go to this particular data and then use this particular variable inside the data. So this is how your formula will look like, and if I press Ctrl Enter, it will be exactly the same one. Okay, model M will also be exactly same as this model. Two ways of writing the formula. Same thing you can do here with multilinear model or GLM, actually generalized linear model. You will have a formula. Now the difference between a multilinear and a GLM model is just that a response can be a number of different families. Okay, response can have different distributions. We can have normal, we can have Poisson, binomial, gamma. These are the four that we study. Okay, these are the most common four distributions. So family, you will specify family. Gaussian means normal, so you'll write Gaussian, or Poisson or binomial or gamma depending on the question. Okay. Then if you're writing just the variable names, then you will have to specify data. If you have written data dollar variable name, then you do not have to specify data. We do not take all of these into consideration, so you don't have to take any other values. You literally have to specify GLM, formula, its family, and data if required. These are the only points that you are going to consider. Now, to comparison purposes, you can calculate ANOVA of this model as well. Okay, then you can calculate they will give you AIC. You can predict, although I have not been able to use predict properly, because most likely the data that is given to us in our written examination is not correct way of using in R. So therefore forget about predict. I have never seen a question, and I don't think they will. If they ask you, you should know how to use predict by using the help. Okay. They can ask you residuals, they can ask you fitted values. Okay. So if they ask you Pearson's residual, you will say residuals, model, and then type you will have Pearson's. If nothing is specified, then the deviance residual is the default residuals that we take. So that would be nothing but residuals model. You don't have to write type of on it. Okay, let's see question. GLM. Do we have GLM here? We had linear model. Okay, and then we had GLM as well. Now see, in this question they have literally said fit the generalized linear model to the data set constructing in part 4a using a gamma distribution. They have already specified that our family is going to be gamma distribution. Sometimes they do not specify that. Let me just take one question where they do not specify the family. Now in this question, you see a general insurance company is building a generalized linear model GLM to analyze claim numbers for a motor insurance policy. For every policy in the past year, the company has collected the number of reported claims and the following data. Okay, these are the data. The data set has been in data train CSV. Okay, it has been uploaded here. There. Explain with what error structure could be used in this GLM. Error structure, that just means whether our error is following some kind of a distribution, or response is following some kind of a distribution or a normal distribution, binomial, Poisson or gamma. Okay, first of all you can see that our response is nothing but claim numbers. It is a number, so it is most likely a discrete. Most likely what? It is definitely a discrete variable. So now you have to figure out whether it is going to be a binomial or a Poisson distribution. So for that, first of all, it can still be a normal distribution, it can still be represented by gamma distribution, okay, even though it is discrete, but most likely it is going to be binomial or Poisson. Okay, it's just if those numbers are clustered a lot, in which you do not it is going from a let's say 0 to 12,000 or maybe 1 lakh values and something like that, then such large values we should not consider them as discrete in terms of binomial or Poisson. We should convert them into normal, or maybe if it is positively skewed, gamma. Okay, so anyways, that is practical use. In the examination they will not be giving you such complications. Anyways, I will just show you the data. Okay, I'll import text space. Data train. Okay, so we have 8,000 observation. This is the data. Now they are talking about claim dot numbers. This is our response. Okay, so to check what kind of distribution this might be, we will actually use and figure out the frequency distribution. So for frequency distribution, the best is use table. Let's say data train. I have this data train here, tab, dollar, and I have this claim number. So I should actually write it here rather than writing it here. Table, control enter, and this is my table. I can even write that in my answer. Okay, this is the table representation. Now clearly you have these many values of 0, these many values of 1, these many values of 2, and these many values of 3. Does that mean the maximum number of claims that we can have is 3? Of course not. We can go up till infinite. There is no restriction in how many claims you can have in a particular policy. So therefore this possible values is going till infinity, although probability of that happening is very, very less. So we would take this as Poisson distribution. You would say that looking at the distribution of the data, you can say that this is nothing but following a Poisson distribution. If you want to prove, we just saw that chi-square test to proving how a sample is following Poisson distribution or not. Okay, so you can do that, but that is not what they have asked in this question. So they have just asked us to calculate the error structure. So the error structure is going to say that it is following a Poisson distribution. Okay. And they're saying fit a GLM that treats age as a linear factor and all other 4 factors as categorical variables. Your answer should show the coefficient, standard error, and p-value, and that means we want to show the summary. So we want to treat age as a linear factor, linear variable, and all other as factors. Okay. Now here let's see the data. This is our data. Age is definitely a variable, but car group looks like a variable, NCD looks like a variable, that we do not want to treat them as variables. We want to treat them as factors. So we have to specify that this is a factor. We have to specify that this is a factor, we do not have to specify these two because these two are already factors, they are not numerical values. But for these two you will have to specify. Again, I prefer writing my formula. I'll say M is my model and GLM. First I'll have to talk about the formula, so I'll say data train dollar. Okay, I just wrote data train dollar. Now see, always writing data train this, data train that, it takes a lot of time. So what I do is I first create another D, let's say, is equals to data train. Okay, this is our data train. Just write this, control enter. Now I have another database with just D as the name, so it's so much easier to write. So I'll say D dollar. Now see the options. This is my response, claim number, follows, age is going to be a vector, a variable, so age plus I want factor D dollar, car group I want it as a factor, area is already a factor, so I can directly write D dollar area, then plus I think we had another factor D dollar, NCD was also numerical value that I want to treat it as factor, then plus gender was already factor, just write D dollar gender. Okay, so this becomes our formula. Now we know this is following a Poisson distribution, so my family will be equal to Poisson. Okay, and just keep the brackets blank because that is nothing but the link function, and we are going to use canonical link function. Okay, so I think that's it. We do not have to specify anything else because we have already taken D dollar, so that means we have already said the address is nothing but D. Press control enter, and I have now my model M. It's a summary of M, so it will take everything into consideration. Okay, estimate, standard deviation, Z value, P value, everything is taken into consideration, and using P value you can talk about the significance. So you'll say age is very significant, 3 star. Okay, very small P value. Factors, a lot of factors of car group are significant, so you would say most likely car group is also significant. Then area does not seem very significant but may be significant. Okay, NCD definitely very significant, and gender is also very significant. Okay, then if you are trying to figure out whether this is a good sample or not, for that you have your null deviance, degree of freedom. This is nothing but for the saturated, this is actually for constant model, that means where you are assuming y is just a constant. This is for this particular model, you can see degree of freedom is given to you, and this is nothing but AIC number. You can compare the AIC number, lower the AIC number, better the model. Okay, Here they have said describe the association between gender and the number of reported claims based on your output from part 2. Your answer should include the numerical comparison of this. Now see, first of all, just give me 1 minute, okay, because just give me 1 minute, okay. Okay, now now let's say we know our y is following Poisson distribution with whatever lambda in this particular case. Now link function are g of mu for Poisson distribution would be nothing but log of mu. Okay, log of mu, that we will say is nothing but eta. Okay, log of mu is nothing but eta. Now here, if you want to figure out how much a particular factor or a variable is affecting your response, this is nothing but response. Our expected value of y is nothing but mu. Okay, so the relationship that we would want would be in terms of mu. Okay. So I would say my change in y, log of my change in y must be equal to nothing but change in my eta if I am talking about a particular change. Okay, so if I am comparing, let's say, gender, so I would say if I change the gender and keep everything else constant, so the effect of change in y will only be, change in eta will only be due to change in gender. Okay, so therefore if I want to see how much is my change in mu, I will say that would be nothing but e raised to my change in gender, or I think rather than this I'll just write it as, let's say, mu will be equal to e raised to eta. Okay, now here we will take change. We'll say change in mu must be nothing but change in e raised to eta. Okay, that means if I say mu of male minus mu of female, then this would be nothing but e raised to eta due to male minus e raised to eta due to female. Okay, now we are saying that all other things are remaining constant, so the eta effect will only be due to male or being female, so we will take only that factor into account. Okay, so for that, if we want to talk about, see, the question says describe your association between gender and the number of reported claims based on your output from part 2. Okay, so if you look at your gender value, you literally have only one value, male, because whenever you're talking about factor, one factor is taken as 0, the other factor is relative to 0. So the female factor value has taken, the parameter has been taken as 0, and relatively the male parameter is 0.25998. Okay. So if you want to see how much change in response do you get due to that, it will just be nothing but our e raised to 0.225, whatever that was, how much, 259982, 259982 minus e raised to 0. That is the factor we are taking into consideration. That would be how much change we will get in our response. That would be mu. Okay. E raised to 0 is just 1, so this much minus 1. You can definitely do this in R. If you want to write this in percentage, then you will divide by e raised to 0 and then into 100. So anyways, e raised to 0 is 1, so you can say 29.69%. So the response in male is 29.69% more than the response in female. Okay, that is what your conclusion is going to be. So response due to male, gender being male, is 29.69% more than the response due to female, or claims due to male is more than claims due to female by 29.69%. That is what your association between genders is going to tell you. Okay. Your answer should include numerical comparison. That is what we just did. Okay. Comment on the fit of the model in part 2 based on the deviance value of the model referenced. Suitable. Okay, so for that you will have to just check change in deviance. So here you have change in deviance, these two, versus change in degree of freedom. Okay. You can directly calculate it for chi-square distribution using chi-square distribution, or you can do it that your change in scale deviance, if it is more than, change in scale deviance is more than 2 times change in degree of freedom, then you say that your model 2 is better than model 1. Okay. So here you would say, because you are checking it with the single constant model, you will get change in this deviance, okay, and change in degree of freedom. Okay. So clearly you will find that your model is better than constant model. That you will definitely get here, because this difference is definitely more than twice of this difference. This difference is about 480 to be precise, and this is about 36, so definitely more than twice. Now let's take second model into consideration. They are asking us to create another model. So they are saying the company considers using a more complex model, including a power transformation of factor age. Okay. So power transformation, add a variable representation of the power age squared to the data. So we can basically make another variable, or you could have used directly the same data and just made another variable, but we will add another variable here. So to add another variable, I can directly say my d dollar, okay, and I will just add up another variable. I'll say age 2, that would be our age square, will be equal to nothing but d dollar age squared, original age squared the value. So if I want to create a vector, create a column, all I have to do is just name it. Okay, so I have named a new column, so automatically it will create a new column and add this value. So if I say control enter, I see D, you can see that now I have age, car group, area, NCD, gender, claim, and I have now age 2. It is just square of these ages. So now we have to create another model. I will just copy all of this, and all we have to do is add age 2. So I will say here plus d dollar age 2. This I will name as model 2, summary 2. Okay, summary model 2. Control enter. Now I have my another model. Now here I have age as well as age 2. Now see, in our previous interpretation, if you see the p value of age was 1.03 10 raised to minus 11. So it was already very significant. If we see here, if we add another variable age square, our p value for both of them is now much less. That means this is much better fit. Now another way of checking whether it is a very better fit or not is going to be using our change in scale deviance and stuff. Okay, so the scale deviance here is this much, and degree of freedom is here, because we have changed we have added one variable, so degree of freedom has decreased by 1. So to check whether my model 2 is better than model 1, I will say change SD will be equal to, I'll say 1 minus 2. So my scale deviance of model 1 was this much, 4085.6 minus I will also note down the degree of freedom. Okay, for that I will have change df, degree freedom. Okay. Degree of freedom is here 7963. I will be subtracting a value also. So first let's go to our second model. The second model, this is our scale deviance. So we have 3981.3, and change in degree of freedom is 7962. Okay, just run this. Now again you can compare, you can directly say if change of SD is more than twice of change in degree of freedom, then model 2 is better than model 1, or you can use the chi-square to find the p value. Okay, so I would say p value, this is going to be upper bound test, so you will be taking only greater than p value. So we will have 1 minus, because I'll have p is less than equal to, so p of chi-square, so CHI-SQ, p of chi-square, that means probability less than, so that is why I have done 1 minus, because I want greater than probability. Okay, where my test statistic is going to be this change in SD, change SD, okay, where degree of freedom is going to be nothing but change in df. So change df. Okay. This way I'll get the p value, and my p value is 0 because p value is very small. Okay. So if p value is very small, that just means that your model 2 is better than your model 1. Okay. And if p value is more than 5%, then you would say your model 1 is better than model 2. P value, remember yesterday, I'll just p value for greater than test, any test where we have greater than, we will say p value is going to be nothing but probability chi-square degree of change in degree of freedom must be greater than this observed value. Okay, this is what we are, our p value is going to be. Okay, this is nothing but change in SD. Okay, we want greater than. Now because this p CHISQ, this is nothing but probability less than. Okay, remember we talked about this at the beginning when we were talking about different distributions. If I want probability CDF that is less than, I use p as my what do we say, reference value or whatever prefix. For chi-square it is going to be p CHISQ. Then we'll have to specify we are finding probability for what value, and then degree of freedom. Okay, so here we want greater than, so that is why we have taken 1 minus, and this we want for this value, so change in SD here, then degree of freedom, that would be change in degree of freedom. Okay, so that is what our p value formula is here. Okay, so these are the different things that can be asked of you when we are talking about GLM, generalized linear model. Okay, you may have two different models to compute and then check whether your which model is better. So always remember we'll take model 1 minus model 2 whenever we are talking about change. Okay, and then p value is going to be chi-square degree of freedom, change in degree of freedom greater than our SD value, and because in R this gives us less than value, that is why I have done 1 minus. Okay, and if p value is less than 5%, then model 2 is better than model 1. If p value is greater than 5%, then model 1 is better than model 2. Now you may most likely have one question of simulation. They may use the word Monte Carlo simulation, Monte Carlo repetition, or they may use the word bootstrap simulation, bootstrap repetition. They mean the same thing. All you have to do is figure out how to use your loops to do whatever they are saying. Now I'll show you the questions. This is a specimen, forget about this, but all the latest questions, they will always specify what to do. So it's very straightforward. Okay, this question paper, June paper, did not have any repetition paid. estimate parameters. Okay, estimate parameters of each distribution. So whenever you are estimating, you are directly taking into account your method of moment estimate. Okay, this was question 2. This is, I think, question 1. Question 2. Okay. So directly sample mean would be mean of our paid value. Sample variance is going to be this. Normal mu, we know that mu of our whole population is going to be nothing but sample mean, and normal variance is going to be sample variance. So they are saying sigma, that would be nothing but our standard deviation, this square root of sample variance. Okay. So that ways these are nothing but your estimates. Method of moment estimate, see here, method of moment estimate. So here you will not be solving MLE, you will be using method of moment estimates. Okay. So method of moment estimates for log normal distribution. Log normal distribution, you know the formula. So they are saying log of 1 plus sample variance upon sample mean. You will have to calculate your values. So how do we do that? We know expected value of x would be e raised to half mu plus sigma square, which is equals to x bar, and variance of x would be e raised to mu plus 2 sigma square e raised to 2 e raised to sigma square minus 1. You will have to figure out how to calculate sig is equals to s square. Rearrange and find mu and sigma square in terms of x bar and s square. So you'll have half. So okay, you can just substitute x bar square here. Okay, so you'll have x bar square e raised to sigma square minus 1 is equals to s square. So sigma square would be log of s square upon x bar square plus 1. Let's substitute that here. You will have half mu plus log of s square by x bar square plus 1 be equal to log of x bar. Okay, so your mu will be equal to whatever, and there you will substitute the values and you will get estimates of mu and sigma square. Okay, so they have directly taken the values here and here, log normal sigma and log normal mu. Okay. There's no simulation here. I don't think the whole question has any simulation. Estimates, yep, there's no simulations here. So let me just take another question paper. Yep, here we have simulation. You can see comment on the appropriate central limit theorem by implying the following steps. Okay. First is generate a sample of 1000 random variables observation from a log normal distribution with parameter this. So see, you can see that they will be saying everything step by step. You just have to follow the steps. So first you have to generate 10,000 random observation from log normal distribution with parameter mu is equals to 2 and sigma square is equals to 0.25. Remember that the parameter is sigma, not sigma square. Okay, so whenever you are generating here they said mu and sigma are the parameters of the distribution defined as in actuarial table provided, and display the first few simulated observation using head function. Use a seed value of 100 to generate random numbers. So they have even given you the seed value. So we'll say set seed as 100. Then you need a random value. So for random value, we'll say, let's say x is equals to r. For log normal, I think L O log is no L N, yes, L norm log normal. Okay, and then the first is how many random value we want. So we want 10,000 random values. Then we want our see, you can see here we want mean of log normal and standard deviation of SD of log normal. Okay, so it's not log of that value. So it's basically mean of the normal distribution and standard deviation of the normal distribution. So that is R2 comma what did they say? I think 0.25 in the question. Right, so mu is equals to 2 and sigma will be 0.5. 2 comma 0.5. Control enter. They said that give the first few values by using head function. So I'll say head of x. So these are the few values. Just copy that, hashtag and values. These will be the first few values. Okay, so they always guide you towards what you want to find. Okay, then they say compute the sample mean, median and variance from the generated sample and compare the values with those of the population for following a log normal distribution with the given parameters. Okay, so we'll have to calculate mean, median and mode. Mean, median and mode, right? Generate sample values, mean, median and variance, not mode. So we'll just have mean of the sample x, variance of the sample x, and median sample x. So we have mean, variance, and median. We know how to find mean of a log normal distribution. We know how to find variance of a log normal distribution. Median of a log normal distribution is just e raised to mu. That is nothing but the median of a log normal distribution. So if you want to calculate, let's say, mean, so we know it is going to be exp bracket, we'll have mu was 2 plus half sigma square, so into 0.25. This is going to be the mean. Okay, actually what you can do is, because we do not actually need to store the value, I will just say mean and control enter. This is the value. Variance formula for variance, and we get the variance here. And then median, median is e raised to mu, so e raised to exp bracket would be 0.5. So clearly mean is similar, but median and variance are not very similar. It should be, but let me just see the solution. Which question? Question number 2. Yeah, we are getting almost the same answers here, rather exactly same. Median is 7.389. Yep, almost the same answer. Variance 19.91, I think. Yes, okay, almost the same answer. Okay, these are the values. Variance, I may have made some mistake in calculating variance. 2 into this plus 0. Oh, okay, my mistake here. Exp, it should be exp sigma square minus 1. This was my mistake. So the variance, let's say control enter, variance is this. And what about median? Median, yeah, e raised to mu, right? What did I do? Did I take e raised to mu? Okay, I took e raised to 0.5, it is e raised to 2. So I made mistake in calculating these values. Okay. Control enter, yes, cxp2. Okay, so then you would say that they are almost the same values, so definitely sample represents log normal distribution. So interpretation, mean median variance of generated sample and those computed based on the parameter are almost equal because the sample size is 10,000, which is pretty large. Generating a much large sample will bridge those smaller differences existing between them as well. So if you, they're just saying if you increase the sample size, you will get a much better relationship, much closer answer. Okay, so that is what they are saying. Let's see the third part. Treat the data generated in one as a population. Generate 500 different random samples of size 200 from the above population and compute a sample mean of each sample. So basically they are saying treat this value as a sample. Okay, so they are saying again use the seed value of 100 to generate random numbers. Okay, we need a sample of 200 from the above sample. So for that, what we'll do is we'll be using our for loop. So we'll say for I in, we need 500 values, so 1 is to 500, and here we need a sample. I'll say y is nothing but a sample out of x. Okay, sample first I will say out of x, then I would need the size is 200, and I want replacement, always replace true when we are talking about sample, taking samples. Okay, so replace true. Okay, so this way I will have a sample of 500 samples. Before I take this sample, I need set seed, set dot seed 100, then I should define any variable that I'm using. So I'll say y is equal to null. Anything else they are saying? From the population and compute the sample mean of each sample. So we want sample mean of each sample. Okay, so this is a sample. I need, I'll say sam mean will be equal to y mean of y. Okay, now we want to store all the sample means in this, so I will say store it in each value of I. I will again define sample mean above. So I'll say sam mean will be equal to null. Okay, now this is how we will be creating a sam mean, that will be our sample mean for all these 200 values. So this is what our simulation means. Okay, this is what is our Monte Carlo simulation. This is what is bootstrap simulation. Basically we are simulating certain sample, taking more samples out of it, and then taking some averages or something out of it. Mean y, I have written capital Y, it should be small y. Run this again. Yes. Then plot the histogram of the sample means generated from this. Interpret the distribution sample mean. So we'll have to plot the histogram. HIST histogram, HIST sam mean, and here we get the histogram. Histogram is almost normally distributed. You will say average value of this is going to be most likely our mean. So you can take out mean of that as well. Mean of mean, average of all of those sample means is 8.39. Okay, just give me 1 minute, okay? I'll be back. Okay, so this is how you will comment that the averagely the mean is about 8.39. okay, most of the data is around that. Your histogram suggests a normally distribution. That means clearly average value is 8.39. that is what nearly our values are, right? So this is how you can simulate and find your estimate of whatever you are trying to find. It will always guide you towards what to do. So this is their histogram, more or less that is what we are getting. Now see, you can specify the breaks. This is very important. Now see here, this is good enough, but if they actually let's see what did they write in the question. Did they specify breaks? No, they did not specify any breaks, but break just means how many divisions to take in between. Okay, so here this does not seem very good. So if I actually take more breaks, if I want more data to be represented, so you will specify breaks. So they have specified 30 breaks. Okay, so let's see, that was not given in the question, so this histogram would also work. Okay, that will not be a problem. But if we specify 30 breaks, then you can see that we'll get similar kind of histogram. Okay, breaks just tell you how many divisions do you want in your histogram. Okay, okay. Interpretation: the sample mean tends to follow a normal distribution through the actual data comes from log normal distribution. The central limit theorem can be verified through this exercise that the sample mean tends to follow the normal distribution as the sample size increases. Increase in sample size from 200 to much higher can ensure better normality sample mean. So they asked us in the question to verify central limit theorem, right? Appropriateness of the central limit theorem. So we had to talk about that even though the sample came from log normal distribution, still the sample mean gave us a normal distribution. Using the histogram, we can say that it is nothing but a normal distribution. Okay. And second of all, that means x bar follows normal distribution. And they say that if we increase the size, we will get much better normal distribution. So if we take more samples, then we will have better normal distribution. Okay. These are the 2 points you have to talk about whenever you are talking about central limit theorem. So this is nothing but simulation. We use loops to create more samples, and then most likely we find like sample variances and sample means and stuff, and do some kind of relationship. Either like if we had Poisson distribution, we would have said that our lambda hat would be nothing but sample mean. If we had exponential distribution and you wanted to calculate your lambda hat, yes, it would be 1 by sample mean. So these are some things that you will have to remember, or you'll have to apply what kind of MME we are going to find for a particular distribution if you are estimating a parameter. Okay. Okay. So these are all different types of questions that you may see, okay, from correlation, linear regression, multilinear, GLM, hypothesis testing, confidence interval, and simulation. Okay. We'll end our class here. If you have any more doubts, you can contact me directly on my WhatsApp. Okay, the number was given to you on the email, and what I will do is I will share, I'll send you an email by tonight of all the files that we used here. Okay, that would be also these question papers for you to practice with of R, and as well as those formula sheets and the practice questions that I have taken for paper A as well. I will email you by tonight. Okay. So let's end our lecture here. Okay, and if you have any problem, you can contact me. Okay. So, bye.